All right, so my name is Melissa Waters, and I'm the manager of events and programs here at JMT. I want to thank you all for joining us today for our expert speaker series. We have the lovely team from the Children's Tumor Foundation joining us today to talk about From Zoom to Zoomathon, Building Community and Fundraising Through Virtual Events. This webinar is, as always, sponsored by JMT Consulting. We're an ERP and financial management solutions firm with 30 years experience focusing on nonprofits. If you have any questions at all during this webinar, we ask that you submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We are recording this, and we will share a copy of the recording as well as the slides after the webinar is complete. Finally, I want to introduce our panel today, and then I'm going to turn it over to them. Again, we have the Children's Tumor Foundation joining us. We have Barbara Gallagher, Vice President of Development, Michelle Prepisny, she's the Chief Advancement Officer, Rebecca Taylor, Senior Development Manager, and Simon Vukel, Chief Marketing Officer. And with that, I will turn it over to them.
Thank you, Melissa. It's so great to be here with all of you today. On behalf of all of us at Children's Tumor Foundation, better known as CTF, we're really excited to share basically how we got through and navigated the landscape last year. Sorry, the presentation's moving fast. So this is just a quick overview of our agenda. First, we're going to give you just a quick snapshot of who we are and what our mission is. Getting a handle on what virtual means, and then looking at our landscape, and then focusing on some of our three of our most successful events last year and what made them successful. I'll also touch on sponsorship and how you can pitch sponsorship with virtual events, and then some of the key takeaways, and then we'll take your questions and answers. So first, I'm going to now turn it over to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand this over to Simon, who's going to give you an overview of who we are here at the Children's.
Barb, leave that screen up.
Leave it up before you share your video. Okay.
Sure, because I just want to talk through some of these bullets. So hello, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. You're going to learn a lot about who we are just through this webinar, but just so you know, we focus on a disease area called neurofibromatosis, or NF for short. It affects 1 in 3,000 people. It's a disease you may not have heard of, but you really should. It affects 2.5 million people worldwide. It causes tumors to grow on the nerves throughout the body. And as horrible as that sounds, that's exactly what it does. And it causes a variety of different manifestations, anywhere from vision loss to hearing loss to excruciating pain to loss of limbs and potentially even cancer. And we are the leading organization in the world outside of the federal government fighting this disease. And rather than me spend a lot of time telling you more about us, let's hear from the people who we are fighting for. So actually now, Barb, if you can stop sharing, I'm just going to play a brief video.
My name is Julia, and I want you to see me and see NF. I want people to know that I'm a little different, and I want them to know that I have more tumors around my body.
I instantly say, I have neurofibromatosis. It's a genetic disorder that causes tumors to grow on my body. Would you like to learn more about it?
I don't have a lot of neurofibromas or a lot of capillary spots that's visible to the world.
Just look, you can't see who I am. I guess that's the answer to the question. You can only see what you can see, which is true of anybody.
Make NF visible for those who don't have a visible aspect. They have brain surgeries. I've had brain surgeries. Sometimes when people don't understand what something is, they get scared.
It's hard.
It's really hard when you're young. Then you really have to deal with that. You have to deal with constantly being stared at, reminded that you do look differently.
When you're faced with a disorder like NF, and if it runs in your family, in my particular case, my son has it. That's how we found it.
Not all people know that I had 5 surgeries.
Even just doing simple tasks sometimes take a lot more out of me because my body is fighting this.
I'm not freaky. I'm not weird. I'm not some alien. I'm like my other peers. I'm like everyone else.
Sometimes I get scared when they see my tumors.
When I walk into a room, I feel really shy. I wonder whether or not I should tell them or not, or what. And if I do, are they going to see me differently? Are they going to understand?
I feel like it's kind of coming for me eventually. Just having these tumors.
When I'm experiencing pain or symptoms because of my NF, I feel sort of guilty.
I have one of the more unique things with neurofibromatosis, which is called pseudoarthrosis.
If you look at me, you can't really see that I have an F, but like sometimes when like my tumors, like they start hurting.
And they ask me why I have so many birthmarks, and I tell them that it's because I have NF.
It's not so easy to be me.
I fight an F by staying strong, even through the hard times, and just knowing that everything's going to be okay.
My name is Dane, and I want you to see me,
See me, and see NF.
And CNF.
And as you can see, our patients don't all have one look. Sometimes you can see the NF, sometimes you can't, but what they all share is a very difficult struggle. So back to you, Barb, to keep us going.
All right. So last year in the pandemic, it was right around a year ago at this time when our world started to change, and we had a full event calendar ahead of us leading into our NF Awareness Month in May. And it was a rude awakening in how we had to change the way we looked at what we did. And so there's a lot of connotations to the word virtual. It's been overused. Frankly, we're attending the peer-to-peer forum right now, and it's one of the most dreaded words that people are tired of hearing about. But I would like to, since this is the context of our conversation today, after a year of all of this, what does virtual mean to you? And if you could, put that in the chat, I'd love to hear what some of your thoughts are. Anyone just want to share digital space, Zoom calls, online? Anything else? Come on, we can get a few more.
Means going to meetings in your pajamas.
Yes, seeing everyone's real life. That's a good one. All right. Well, let's look at what virtual means in its raw, its raw definition in the dictionary. Sorry, I'm trying to get my slide to advance. Oh, sorry. So basically, existing, seen, or happening online or on a computer screen, rather than in person or the physical world, right? We're temporarily extending our reality and simulating it online. And in the past, when I think of virtual events and how we grew up with it before, some of us who grew up before computers and online screens, was television, right? We could watch sports and football on television. And this brought our families and our friends together, college friends. You could watch a game if you couldn't travel to the game, if you couldn't afford to go to the game. You can watch the Olympics in Japan. You can watch the Super Bowl. You can watch Wimbledon, and you can have all of this on your TV screen and bring your family together. And more recently, we actually got to watch the Mars landing, right? And so even the NASA, sorry, my slides are moving too quickly. So we had, in the middle of all this chaos in the past couple months, we even Perseverance landed on Mars. And you saw, if you watched any of the news coverage, you saw how excited the NASA team was when Perseverance landed on Mars. And when they were interviewed, one of the lead scientists on the project is like, we are living on Mars now. This is our reality. We are there. And they intentionally landed it on a part of the planet no one's ever seen before. And again, the visual, the technology transported them to this place without having to physically send somebody there. So there's a lot we can do with technology and with virtual. The added component in the fundraising world, however, is engaging our community. It can't be enough to just watch something on screen. We have to be able to engage our volunteers and our fundraisers, our donors in real time. They have to feel a part of it. So if they can't go to a gala, how can we make them feel like they're a part of a gala and playing a role in it? In this case, I'm showing, we just had a virtual poker tournament last week. And this was a really incredible event where the participants literally had poker tables, they could see each other on Zoom, and they were playing a real poker game at the same time. So the participants were active, they were doing buy-ins, they were playing poker with celebrities, meeting other people in the NF community, and still playing a real live game of poker. We see this with live streaming and gaming all the time. So this is where we in the fundraising world and the development world have to make these events real for our participants. It's not just about watching, it's about being engaged and participating. Okay, so this was our virtual landscape. We do a lot of events at CTF. The NF community is a rare disease community. They look forward to these events. They want to be together with other people that are like them, facing similar challenges as them. And so, as you can see, we had a huge event portfolio last year that we had to take and make virtual. And it was really, we couldn't really afford to cancel these events, and we had to figure out ways to adapt into a virtual world. And so we did everything from taking galas virtual, to taking our walks virtual, to having a virtual endurance challenge, which our JMT supporters participated in. We had a virtual hackathon. We introduced a live stream campaign. So we did a lot of different things. Today, we're going to focus on 3 of our most successful virtual events. Our May NF Awareness event, live stream telethon event, our Shine a Light walks, which were held virtually between July and November last year, and then our grand finale event of the year that takes place every year in November, our Gala, which was turned into a celebration concert. So we're going to focus on these 3 things and also talk about some of the key, these are some of the key themes that we found throughout the year that contributed to the success of these events. And, you know, innovation and being willing to think outside the box with crazy ideas, always engaging the community. That applies no matter whether the event's virtual and in person, you know, investing in the right technology and platforms, cross-departmental collaboration, cross-departmental teams, and of course, continuing to look at our ROI and making sure that we're spending money in a way that's respectful of the money we're trying to bring in and raise for our mission. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I'm going to have Michelle. Oh, sorry. We're going to start with our Home is Where the Heart is Zoomathon. And I'm going to talk to Michelle and Simon about this, since they were the key leaders of this event. So Michelle and Simon, let's start by saying, how did you come up with this crazy idea of creating a telethon and making it possible via Zoom?
So I'm probably going to ask Simon to chime in more than I'm going to talk about this, because it was really his idea at the end of the day. So as everybody knows, with COVID, we were in this place where nothing could happen in person. So all of your contracts had to be renegotiated for another year. And so one of our events, which was a big scientific event, was happening in Philadelphia in June, and we had to renegotiate the contract. And Simon said, well, I guess if we can't renegotiate, we'll just get everybody there and we'll have a big telethon. And I was like, well, that would be great, Simon, but we can't actually have people in person anywhere. He said, but let's talk about that telethon idea, because it's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard in my 20-some years of fundraising. So how do we actually make that happen within, I think it was about 3 weeks from crazy idea to actual implementation. Do you want to say anything more on that, Simon? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. What I said was that everything you said was absolutely true. And so we, what was interesting was, so May is NF Awareness Month, as Barb mentioned before. And as we were heading into May, before we even learned that we might have an issue with the contract at the hotel for the other event, we had decided to pivot. So you saw the Make NF Visible theme. That was always our plan for May, and we still used it. And you're going to see a rollout of that this year too, if we get a chance to talk about that at the end. But we decided to pivot because part of May is encouraging people to activate in their communities, to go out and get buildings lit up in our colors, to participate in real live events like our walks, which we're going to hear about in a second. We knew everyone had to be home. So we came up with the Home is Where the Heart is idea, which was that you could still raise NF awareness through the use of social. This is before we were all sick of Zoom and all these other things. So that was sort of the theme behind it. And then, as Michelle said, we were sitting there, Michelle and I talk almost every day and brainstorm all kinds of wacky ideas. And it was this How do we take that telethon concept? Even though I'm the marketing guy and we very much focus on digital activation, I do have this thing about old school is the new school, and sort of that's where the telethon idea came from, the old Jerry Lewis idea, if you all recall that, for people of a certain age. So that's where the idea came from. And honestly, we sat there, I think it was 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night after hours on Zoom, thinking, can we pull this off? And the answer was, we have no idea, but let's just see what happens. So we put together some quick graphics, and what we found was that, and I know Michelle's going to talk about volunteer engagement, that the ask of our base, our donors, our volunteers, our friends, was a little bit easier because we weren't asking them to show up for a live event. And to give you an idea, Barb, I'm going to ask you to stop sharing for a second. We put out a little promo video as we started recruiting people for this crazy idea. And just so you have a sense of what it is, I won't bore you with too much. So this is a little promo video of what this event ended up being.
What's up, everybody? It's Jonathan Sadowski.
Hi, I'm Martin Short. Bob Saget here.
Hey guys, it's me, Jesse McCartney.
Hi, I'm Amy Carrero from Young and Hungry.
So me and some of my friends have teamed up with the Children's Tumor Foundation, and we are cooking up something special for you on Sunday, May 17th.
Hi, I'm Danica McKellar.
Hi, I'm Chef Michael Voltaggio.
Paul Schaefer.
Patrick Bruel.
Howie Mandel here. Oh my God, I just noticed.
Well, there's just
Here is a mess.
Please join me.
Please join me.
Let's help and NF together.
And so that's, none of those people except the first guy, Jonathan Sadowski, was with the foundation as of May 1 of last year. Within a few short weeks, we're sending a messaging script to them. This is very quick, just to have an idea of what they did that night.
Hi, I'm Martin Short, Emmy winner, Tony Award winner. No Oscar, but whatever, it's early. But I'm not here to talk about my accomplishments. I'm here to talk about something that I would like to do, and that is to help make NF visible. To all of you living with NF, I see you. Please join me in the fight to end NF. Thank you.
So we've got patients and celebrities using the same message. So how do we make that happen? So I'm going to turn back to Michelle. And so crazy idea. We're going to do this. You just saw the end result. You can actually see the live stream still on our YouTube if anyone wants to see it. So we able to pull it off. So I don't know, Barb, if you want to ask Michelle a question.
Yeah, I was going to say, so how did you get all these celebrities?
Well, I want to highlight something as well. It's a partnership. And I think that was one of the themes that we found was hugely important. Partnership and collaboration. And that goes with your volunteer base, your constituency, your donors, and also your internal team. This would never happen without the true partnership between development and marketing, from the idea to the implementation to the branding and the messaging, which was all the brilliant idea of both marketing, development, and our volunteer base. So the celebrities, as you can see, 58 plus celebrities participated. That was because as we came up with this crazy idea, I think on that same night, we called Jonathan Sadowski, who's one of our top celebrity supporters and does so much for us. And he said, oh my gosh, I'm in, I love this idea, let's do it. And by the way, I'm asking Shin Lim, I'm asking this person, I'm Danica McKellar, like all of these folks, he said, I'm going out to ask them to participate in this. And they all said, yes. We have a board member who actually is a screenwriter in Hollywood. We said, Michael, we need your help. He enlisted some of his friends. And from that, we had another group of celebrities come in to participate in this. And in the planning of it, we engaged Jonathan as a volunteer and also helping from the perspective of the celebrity recruitment, but also one of our other tried and true volunteers who lives in Arkansas, not even in New York City. And he's been a top fundraiser for us over the years. He said, I love this idea, I want to get involved. And because of him, he connected us to other celebrities, other musicians, but also to sponsors. And he himself sponsored because he felt like he was engaged and that he was giving back through being a part of this event. So it just goes to show, one, I always say, if you don't ask, you don't get. So if we didn't ask Jonathan, we wouldn't have the celebrities. If we didn't ask Michael, the same thing. If we didn't engage Pete in this, we wouldn't have had over $35,000 in sponsorship going into the event, which helped us out that evening and raising our $304,000 at the end of the day. I know, Barb, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to jump a little bit just to say, I think 90 to 95% of the money that we raised that evening was raised then and there through text to give, through an online, through a link that we presented to people. You can go to ctf.org/donate or ctf.org/heart. You can text this to 41444. And we also gave an old-fashioned phone number for a lot of people who actually aren't comfortable online. And we got a lot of people who actually gave that evening online. We also had the power of a match, which also came from a donor and a volunteer who loved this idea. And that evening, I think about an hour and a half before the program started, he called me and said, we want to give a $10,000 anonymous match. And so we had to make that happen. And that helped drive a lot of the revenue that we saw that evening as well.
Yeah, and I think also it's nice that the celebrities themselves, beyond just participating, and a lot of it was pre-recorded. It was a live event. Some of the celebrities who couldn't be there that night that sent us the pre-records. They also, because we asked, to Michelle's point of if you don't ask, you don't get, we asked them if they would push out on social. Not everyone did, but a lot of them did. And, before we knew it, we had, people like Roman Reigns, a WWE wrestler. You may or may not have heard of him, but a lot of people have. And, he puts out a message that we gave him and wrote for him. And, suddenly he's got 300,000-400,000 likes on a message. So we were watching in the lead up, when we were not sleeping, people who were new to NF learning about NF through these social feeds. We had NF community members kind of doing probably what some of our watchers today might be doing. Well, how did you get it? I mean, I don't have that base. I can't reach out to these folks. So our NF patients were thrilled that this extra attention had been brought to something, because they felt like they weren't being covered in the news the way they'd like to be. We think that also motivated people to give. They were proud to show off the foundation to their friends. They couldn't have real viewing parties, but they had virtual ones. And we know for a fact that people were giving because of that sort of renewed pride, I guess, in the fact that this group was doing this for them. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Great. Well, I'm glad we covered fundraising, because of course that's the most important piece. But I will ask, from a technology standpoint, how did you go about choosing a production company for an event such as this?
So it was hard. It was the beginning of COVID, beginning of virtual or live televised, if you will, is what maybe we'll start calling it in the future. So we weren't sure. We had to kind of go on a limb and go and talk to people who were recommended to us. And so we interviewed, I think, 3 different companies, and we ended up going with one. A lot of it based upon costs, but also because we didn't know all the ins and outs. And we were down to, I think, 2 different companies that we really, really liked, but one of them we just didn't have enough time to actually work with them, and they were more expensive at the end of the day. So we had to look at, we didn't have a budget for this. We didn't know how much money we were going to raise. And we loved the event company that we actually did use, but we learned so much in that process. And that actually led us to choosing a new production partner who we then actually gave our entire rest of the year in terms of virtual events. We gave Situation Interactive the contracts for all of those moving forward. And they became a true partner and collaborator in our effort, not just from a production perspective, but from a fundraising perspective, from a vision perspective, and even from a marketing perspective.
Yeah. As we evaluated these companies, I mean, we just did not know what we were doing at that moment. And I think now there's a lot of sort of streaming experts, but I think even a lot of these companies, for them, it was new, or companies that were holding real life events suddenly no longer could. So they were pivoting. They were trying to figure out how to make a buck too, and offering themselves to do this when they weren't quite ready. So for us, we were a little bit like the kid in the candy store, but for a good reason. We needed everything. We needed a donor scroll on page. We needed to do call outs. We needed, the branding guy wanted his logo up there all the time. We needed, this is very important, we needed closed captioning to be ready and available, because a sizable portion of our community is hearing impaired. And not everyone could do all those things, or had not done them before, short of hiring, as Michelle said, a full-blown broadcast company that's used to doing things on TV. But I don't know how many people watched the Golden Globes this past weekend, but they had mistakes, and this is a year in to this. So this is hard. The screenwriter that Michelle mentioned earlier afterwards congratulated us on being able to pull off something that even experts have trouble pulling off. So not just trying to pat ourselves on the back, but it was tough, and we did learn And I think it's probably a good transition to how we took those learnings to our next challenge, which was the walk program, I think.
Yes.
So, yeah.
All right, so our Shine a Light Walk program, our tried and true signature walk program where, we'll typically have 6,000 participants around the country in 30 some odd walks. So this was a huge, and they're largely volunteer run. So I'm going to, start with Rebecca on this and really discuss that challenge. When COVID hit, how did you embrace the community and engage them in the difficult decision to have to cancel our in-person events?
Yeah, so in late March, when the world started shutting down everywhere, our first order of business was to move the spring walks to the fall. That was the first thing that we did. But the second thing was to engage our volunteers in understanding kind of what was going on. And we wanted to float an idea of taking all of the walks virtually, but maybe do one national walk day. So we engaged a group of really kind of our top leaders of some of our walks and floated this idea past them. And they really were very passionate about keeping their event days. So we did decide to keep 32 individual walk days. And we promised them that we were going back to the drawing board and we would present them with how we are going to do this virtually. So the first thing we did was call marketing and say, how is this going to look? How do you take an in-person walk where everybody loves to be together and community is huge in any nonprofit, but it's really, really big in the NF world? And how are we going to make this look great and feel inclusive from your computer screen? So we decided to go ahead. Luckily, we had already created Facebook event pages, so we already had that. And we did decide that we were going to use our Facebook event pages to launch whatever the walk was going to be. And we decided that maybe a 30-minute walk video that will launch like at a certain time for each one of the separate events would be the way to go. So that was our initial thought, but things changed.
Yes. So how did you come across the decision to choose the right platform and the right way to host these events?
Yeah.
And how did that change from your initial plan? And how did you have to, actually, you had to pivot within your pivot. So
yes, yeah, we pivoted so many times I don't even remember what the original plan was, but I do remember that originally we were going to enlist our production company that they mentioned earlier that they didn't get to use for the Zoomathon, but Situation Interactive is our partner with all of our virtual events moving forward. And they produced this kickoff event program that utilized pre-recorded messages from our families talking about why they walk. They also used pre-recorded messages from our families talking about what they were going to do that day. So we were trying to make it feel very live and very like, here's what's happening in Michigan today. Go out, take a walk, post all of your photos and videos on the Facebook event page, and let's get walking was basically the message. But the first event was in July 25th, and we launched this beautiful 30-minute video using all of these homegrown videos from all of our constituents. And it was beautiful. We were so proud of it. And 25 people watched it. So we decided, let's give it August. We had 3 more walks coming up in August. Let's keep going down this path of having Situation Interactive produce the video. And we kept going, and our viewership actually kept declining. And we were worried that engagement was declining with it. So we went back to the drawing board, always with our volunteers, grabbed the volunteers that had already gone through these walks, the leaders of those that have already, their events had already happened. And basically we heard that people didn't want to sit down and watch a 20 to 30-minute video. So the walk team, actually, we put our heads together again with marketing and decided, why don't we use these Facebook event pages and just have them upload their own videos of why they walk, what they're doing today, fun warm-up videos that we got local fire departments to do. We got them to start posting, and that's when the engagement took off. It was incredible. We discovered new stories from patients that we'd never heard from. There was participation from all over the world. That's the other great thing about virtual, is that grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins from all over the world. We had people from Europe to South America post photos. We had one family member that was actually in an airplane taking a walk, and she posted a video. So it was really, really wonderful. It was great.
It's great. And the other amazing thing about our walks this year is we generated an incredible amount of PR coverage. And so, Simon, can you help share the secrets to that success and why that worked so well, even with virtual events?
Sure. So that was also initially a pivot to a pivot to a pivot, and we had good news earlier in the year. I mean, right before, actually just as COVID hit, but right before it came, we had gotten the first ever approval for a treatment for NF, for a very specific type of NF, which was huge news because it was the first time in the NF field. But it was just as COVID was taking off, and we could not get coverage on the story, which normally we think might have even landed a front page story on the Times or the Wall Street Journal. So what we heard, and I think what other organizations listening will probably remember, is that you could not get a reporter to write anything about anything except if it was COVID. So we pivoted, and it occurred to us that, obviously COVID affects NF patients, not in a different way. It affects NF patients the same as anyone else, but access to care was certainly a challenge. NF patients who needed to get to their MRIs or even their chemo treatments, have faced those challenges. So that, in a sense, was a story, and we connected that then back to the Shine a Light Walk. So the stories that helped, so it used to be that, hey, reporter, come cover this event because we know we're going to have all these people. It's really important the community's here. They're very much community-based stories, and that's how we got coverage. This time it was, the walk is virtual. You're asking me, how do you cover a virtual event? Just like Rebecca said, how do you get people to be excited about something that doesn't really take place in person? But we gave them a reason, a mission focus as to why this still needed to happen, even in the midst of everything else. So it was that, plus a lot of just honestly grassroots work, just reaching out to reporters and relying on our volunteer base, which I think you've heard over and over today, just really encouraging our volunteers to reach out to their contacts too, where we gave them those stories to put together.
And on the fundraising side, what was really amazing is our walk program it was essentially flat, or just shy of flat, year over year, with 2,000 participants versus 6,000. And so, Rebecca, why don't you share, again, there's certain things that don't change, right, with our event platforms. And so in terms of stewardship and cultivation of our fundraisers and donors, what did you guys do to achieve that level of revenue?
I mean, the greatest line ever is what Simon said, is that old school is the new school, because I know it sounds simple, but we just picked up the phone. We got to really, really work with our fundraisers and our teams and get to know their families and remind them constantly of why we have to keep going. Just because it's a pandemic doesn't mean that our work in NF ends at all. And they're living it. They're living this at home every single day. And so, the passion was there. And then one of the things that we were talking about, we're in the peer-to-peer conference right now this week. And really, we now know who our loyal supporters are, because we had a third of the amount of participants, but we raised just as much money. So that was a huge part of it. And then also we kept going on sponsorship, just like Michelle said too. I'm just going to take all of their lines and use them myself too. Is that you don't know unless you ask. And so we have a clinic network that we worked with to ask them to be, kind of the faces of our campaigns, and if they would monetarily support us, and they did. And we had local sponsors step up. We didn't change any of our levels. We didn't ask for less money. We asked for the same amount, and we got our first national sponsor of the walk through AstraZeneca. And we also got a first retail partnership through Jersey Mike's subs. So we had a really good year. It really was. It was amazing. And, I just think we learned so much about our community, and it just meant the world to them, and it meant the world to us too.
Great. And picking up on that, it's, you know, a lot of our success is sort of validated in the national nonprofit space. Across the top 30 peer-to-peer fundraising events, participation was down 61% in 2021. However, the average revenue per individual participant was up 69%.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that you can engage your most loyal supporters. To me, that statistic just stood out in my mind over everything else, and it was, you could totally see it in our walk program this year.
Yeah, it was true for us too. Yeah.
So great job, guys. All right, so now, last but not least, is our gala. Now, this is our national gala that takes place normally at Cipriani in New York City. So, Michelle, after all these virtual events and celebrity-filled telethons, how did you differentiate this gala? How are you going to bring new participants in and really distinguish this as our culmination event for 2020?
It's a great question, and it was a question that I think I asked myself up until November 16th of last year, because it became the bane of my every day and every night thinking, because with virtual walks and with a Zoomathon and with all of our other fundraising events that happen, in fact, one that was very similar to the Zoomathon happened 3 weeks before our national gala. So I really was trying to differentiate. And from the Zoomathon, the crazy idea that I had was, what if we just have sort of a live televised concert? And actually, that was the initial idea, as if we could do something at Cipriani's, could you actually get a singer there? Could we do live televised from Cipriani? Well, we couldn't exactly do that, but based upon our incredible volunteer base, who we brought in both as honorees, but also we have 3 chairs and co-chairs of this event who really drive the strategy and the vision for this event with myself and a few other folks. And so we came up with the idea of, we can't change the gala per se. You have to have the same exact recipe, if you will. You have your honorees who are going to be part of that engagement and engaging the folks. And that was really, really important. We're going to bring in the talent. So as you can see, we had Gavin DeGraw and a concert from Emmylou Harris and a special cameo from Danae Benton, who is a Broadway star and close with one of our NF patients. And that really helped to drive sort of the excitement. I think the other great thing about this event was the fact that it was the culmination, it was the end event. We weren't changing the recipe, we were still asking for the same amount of money for a table or a sponsorship or a ticket, but we could drive more participation and engagement in the NF community because you didn't have to buy a ticket to participate. You could be a part of this just by registering to see the event. And for that, you could come on the 16th. It was free for everybody to join. But of course, from the perspective of a telethon, we asked every 15 minutes, there was an ask. And again, it was the text to give, there was a link to give, and of course, the phone number. That old school is new school, making sure that people who aren't comfortable online had an opportunity to give. What was really exciting about this is that our budget for this particular event was 1.2 million. Through engaging the talent, through engaging the celebrities, Gavin DeGraw, Emmylou Harris, our honorees in their social media as well, that brought new people to the table. The fact that we could engage our NF community who may have never participated in an event before because they couldn't come to the gala, or they can't come to a walk, or they can't come to another event based upon geography. They were able to participate in the culminating event of a year to actually celebrate all of our successes at the end of the day.
And
I think I covered a lot there, Barb.
I think you covered most of the questions. Can you just talk about, I think the last question, you know, with galas, so much of it is what you bring ahead of time and what you bring in night of. Can you just give us sort of a perspective on that and how you reached and surpassed the goal?
Yep. So there's actually, I will talk about that. I want to talk about the recognition that we haven't touched upon.
Yes.
And then I also want to talk a little bit about engagement as well, and carry back into something that Rebecca said. So whereas with the Zoomathon, we only had sponsorship up front and 90 to 95% came in that evening, it was the opposite with the gala. Because we were going out and asking people to give at the same levels as before, if not higher in some cases, and they did. We went into the gala with about, I think it was about 1 million. So we had 200,000 to raise that evening to actually meet our goal. We ended up with $300,000 over our goal, raising 1.5 million. We also had another important element here. We had a donor who said, I want to help drive fundraising from the gala to the end of the year. So he actually provided us with a match, a sizable match. It was $1 million match, matching any new donations that came in for the gala, and then anything that will come in for the end of the year. So that really helped to drive excitement as well. Something we didn't mention for the Zoomathon, but it's important both for the May event and for this event and all fundraising events that we had, is our fundraising platform allowed us to have text to give, but also allowed us to have a donor scroll. Simon mentioned that before. Really important for our donors to be able to see their name in lights. And of course, we would recognize the donors that way, but also at certain levels of donating, we gave them something. At the gala, it might be a really lovely special box that they could enjoy in their homes with their family, or if they were doing a small watch party. And for the Zoomathon, everybody who gave over, I think it was $100 or more, got a t-shirt with a very, very specialized branded t-shirt for Home is Where the Heart Is. So we want to make sure that our donors and our participants felt special and engaged. And one of the things that I found was really important in all of these events was that engagement tool. Most of it has to be taped. It can't be live, because then you get too many of these issues with technology. But what we did, and we ended up doing it very, very well by learning over the course of the 6 to 9 months that we were doing this, is having a live component, making sure that your hosts are live, drives that element of having some sort of engagement with the audience and some banter. And so people really felt like they were in a room with our hosts. And I think that was something that was really important to the overall engagement, and another reason why people were giving, because the hosts were asking, but they were having fun with each other as well.
Great. All right. Well, thank you guys. I'm going to, before we start our Q&A, one area I just want to touch on a little bit is sponsorship. Sorry, my screen is. And so this was actually our sponsor lockup for our virtual hackathon. And I'm just posting this here to tell you that you can generate corporate dollars in the middle of a pandemic. This event in particular was a virtual hackathon. Again, we had traditionally done an in-person hackathon tied to our NF conference. But because we took it virtual, and we did hire a company to help that manages virtual hackathons, we catered this event to a larger audience. It not only appealed to NF researchers, but to software engineers and data scientists and machine learning experts. So we got donors and patients involved as mentors and volunteers, and they got so excited that they went out and actually helped solicit sponsors for us. So Salesforce and GraphPad had never sponsored any of our events before and came in at the presenting level. And then through our board and through our science contacts, we got lots of the biotech partners, as well as 2 major foundations, NTAP and Gilbert, to help sponsor some of the prizes. So this is just an example. And as Rebecca mentioned, we had sponsorship success with our walks. We had sponsorship with our special events. So this is possible. And there's a few key things. This is, again, old school is new school. Engage your volunteer leaders. They are going to help you drive this sponsorship revenue. When you get volunteer leaders involved in your event that are excited about it, even donors, that are connected to certain large companies, don't be afraid to ask them, hey, can you get your company involved? Can we get a meeting? A lot of these started just as meetings and resulted in sponsorship. And what you do have to do is digitize your asset. So whereas typically you would be selling a booth or a table or presence at the event, think about virtually how much more you can, the opportunities, and often there's even more opportunities for your sponsor to engage with your audience. Pre-recorded and live speaking opportunities. They can host a VIP session or a networking session tied to a virtual event. Certainly the recognition on video, on the scrolls, on PowerPoint slides, shout outs from celebrities. There's plenty of recognition opportunities there. We use social media. We were, hand in hand with our social media manager and the marketing team. We probably used more than we've ever used it before to help credit our sponsors, utilizing all of our social media channels, emails, thanking them, putting their logo on the t-shirt. Some, we did not use virtual booths, but that's something that other events have used. And certainly the branded giveaways, as Michelle mentioned, we had logo t-shirts that sent home, or often they could be tied to a giveaway. So there's loads of opportunities to adapt your sponsorship benefits in the virtual world. So I encourage you to continue to focus on that, because corporate revenue can be really key with a lot of these events. So here's just a summary of the key takeaways. Volunteer leadership engagement, everything starts with that, whether your event's live or in person. Use them to drive your strategy, use them to bring the community together, use them to get your sponsors, your celebrities, guests, participants. They're an extension of your staff. Really engage them to make these events successful. And collaboration within, cross-departmental collaboration has never been stronger at CTF. And this last year really brought us together and realized how we can really help each other. And do your homework. Big piece of this new world moving forward is going to be the technology you use and the platforms. And it's really important to do your research and to partner with the other teams, because what's happening is there's different online platforms for different types of events. What might work for a gala, you might need a totally different technology for a walk or an endurance platform. Mobile apps are really the key. This has come out of peer-to-peer for the future. It's no longer enough to be mobile responsive. If you're going to engage in these hybrid and even in-person events moving forward, these apps are doing everything from augmented reality to tracking your activity in minutes, providing GPS maps of where you need to go. So it's all going to be about these apps moving forward. And despite all the need and dependence on technology, the traditional rules of stewardship and cultivation always apply. You will always need to thank your donors, recognize them, engage them, and stay in touch with them, even after the event is over, and to engage them in the planning process. And as we close out, we mentioned that Simon mentioned the Golden Globes before. If you watch this on Sunday night, it was actually really fascinating. And if you watch shows like The Voice, you'll see it too, where people are really trying to have the live component combined with people on Zoom, live videos and pre-recorded. It definitely makes for an interesting event. I agree, it was fun to watch the Golden Globes. They definitely had some Zoom glitches, but at the same time, it sort of made it a more intimate experience. It was kind of fun to see the celebrities in their homes and even struggling with the Zoom technology. So there's a lot to look forward to in the year ahead. Other things that are coming out of the peer-to-peer forum is to consider this a transition year. Many people are going to have to change plans again. They're holding out. They're doing virtual in the first half of the year. They're holding out for in-person for the last half of the year, but preparing to go virtual again. People are looking into contactless registration, QR codes, curbside, live stream events, multiple starting lines for walks. So there's a lot going on here. There's still a lot more to come, but the goal for most people is to combine the best of in-person and the best virtual. And then with the long-term goal is hopefully we'll all be in person again. So when we come back to you a year from now, we'll have a whole new set of best practices, a combination of the old, but I'm sure we're going to learn a lot more new things this year. And one last thing I think that they mentioned today, that we always think about, in the nonprofit world, these are our supporters, these are our volunteers, but just keep in the back of your mind, we are actually their charity. So, we belong to our supporters. So just to keep that in mind as you plan for the year ahead. So I think that's all we have, and we're ready for questions.
So there is a question, Barb, in there. So Bonnie asked us what a hackathon is. So Bonnie, so I know that conjures the idea of bad guys.
Right. Questions.
So, yes, I'll just quickly answer, Barb.
Sure.
So this is not bad guys; these are the good guys hacking away. So we traditionally in scientific research, scientists do their work. They generate data, which is just another word for knowledge. But sometimes it's ones and zeros, sometimes it's just information, and they tend to not on purpose, but just because of the way the system is set up, keep the data to themselves. At the Children's Tumor Foundation, we encourage researchers to work together, so they're not duplicating positive results or negative results in an environment where that data comes together. So we call it a hackathon because what we do is we anonymize the data, so you don't know who these patients are. And we invite both NF researchers and people who are artificial intelligence experts and people who may not even have a connections to NF to come in and look for answers or results or trends or commonalities across the various manifestations of NF and potential compounds or molecules that we could use to treat these various forms of NF. So that's what a hackathon is. Barb mentioned having mentors involved. So data is data. So sometimes you need to see the face of a patient. So that's why we also then have researchers and patients in there to really help the hackers, in quotes, understand what it is that they're doing. So it's a fascinating experience. It was fun to watch in person when we did it 2 years ago. That does feel a little like a movie. So you see people in corners and and working together and eating lots of pizza and drinking lots of soda and coffee all night long. This was a different experience because it was virtual. We turned a 2-day hackathon into a 6-week event, knowing that people had different schedules now that they were working from home. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Simon. Sorry I didn't see that earlier.
No, that's okay. But if other people have questions, then we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, thank you. I have a few questions that have come in for you. First, what is the most valuable lesson that you learned from the last year?
Yeah, I'll let Michelle answer that one.
I was going to say sleep is overrated.
Yeah, that would be one. Don't think you're ever going to get any sleep. I think that one, I think, this is not a lesson, but virtual is actually harder than in person, right? And it's only going to get harder when we try to do virtual and in person. So you always have to stay above. You always have to be thinking about, if you think it's perfect, it's not perfect. How can it be more perfect? But I think the biggest lesson goes back to what Simon and Rebecca and Barb said, that the old school is a new school, that honestly, the most important thing that we can be doing in any given moment in time is the stewardship, the cultivation, the relationship building. Like that, the most important thing that we can do throughout all of this, virtual or not, that stays true. That to me is hands down, those are the 3 things you do on a yearly basis. Everything will happen, money will follow, things will fall into place.
I agree.
Go ahead, Rebecca. I have something too. But
no, I agree. I agree with everything she just said.
But I'll add to it too, and this is very specifically for nonprofits, but also for profits too. I think nonprofits, ourselves included, we obviously want to put every penny on the dollar that we can to mission. I think we had a slide that said we're at 84 cents on the dollar goes to mission. So we're super proud of that. We have the high charity navigator rating and everything else. But as a result, what happens sometimes is we potentially shortchange investment in technology. And I'll say that on the marketing team, we think we did a pretty good job, but we always sort of had that holy grail of we'll invest in certain things so that we can do better targeting and segmenting and all the other stuff that we want to do. Well, virtual changed that, because now it forced open conversations both among our staff, among our executive team, with our board about, at what point are you doing yourself a disservice if you don't invest? And so that's what we ended up doing this past year, and actually going into 2021 and beyond. We have accepted that even when we go back to in-life events, which we're all super excited to do, we're all figuring out how we're going to do walks that are 6 feet distant and all that other stuff. There will probably always be some sort of hybrid component to it, which, to Michelle's point, is more complicated, increases your budget, because now you have to do something in person and something that streams. But then you also have to have people, whether on staff or people you hire, who can execute those for you, because our volunteers are awesome and they love it, but also they, like anyone, will step away if you fail, or if you don't provide an experience or an engagement that is meaningful for them. So don't shy away then from investments. We're also happy, even after this event, if you ever want to reach out to us one-on-one and talk to us about how we made decisions about what to invest in and not invest in, because that really was a big part of this year when we switched production companies too. So.
And the technology is only going to continue to be more important, especially based on this peer-to-peer forum. I mean, we've only begun to scratch the surface of what we're going to need to do in terms of investments and apps. So yeah, it's really important.
Yep.
Awesome. Yes, you touched on a couple other things. So in lieu of time, I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'll give you all the chance to say one final thing. Where do you see events for Children's Tumor Foundation in the next few years? Like you said, virtual is not going away anytime soon. Live events are returning. You want to keep a format of both, but what is your vision for that? What do you want to be successful at? Does that make sense?
It does.
It's a hard question. It's a big question. I think that there are some events where we will absolutely have to become the expert in the live televised from Cipriani, live televised from blah, blah, blah. Our May NF event hopefully will remain, and that is an opportunity for us to really, it's less about the money, even though that's important. It's really about bringing the NF community together so that they can feel that they're heard, that they're seen, and that we're giving them an opportunity to be together on their day, on World NF Awareness Day. So eventually that may stay live, but then we're going to have to perfect that to the nth degree. And then other events are going to have a continual virtual component to it. The gala will never not be able to have a virtual component. We're going to always have to do this live televised from New York City. And we're going to have to change that format. What does it look like so that you're not in a 4-hour gala with people drinking, but there's a program and then people are drinking and eating and being together. It's a hard question to answer because we certainly want to grow our events. We want to perfect the virtual through technology, through engagement, through stewardship. And we have to take a look at that, and every event almost has to be analyzed and looked at one by one to see which one can incorporate hybrid successfully and which one can't, all while engaging the community locally, nationally, and both in person and virtually. I'm not quite sure I answered your question, but
I think engagement is absolutely the key depending on the event. So if you think back to old school galas, why are people there? Because they want to look good, dress good, see each other, show off a little bit, but also support the cause. But there is very few people who love sitting through an hour and a half of speeches and content, but we're there because it's the reason we're there. But then when you think about the virtual version of that, and what Michelle just said, bringing people in who might not otherwise be able to participate, you can still split it up. You can have exclusive content or exclusive something for the people who can be in person versus the people who are streaming. But even on the streaming side, it's not, you have to find a way, whether it's through technology or it's through your script writing, to engage people so they don't necessarily turn away from their screen. So I'll just use a quick example because I know we're out of time, but when we planned that May event, one of our CEO's assistant came to us with an idea of something she had seen on, I think, at other events about playing bingo during the event. And we didn't spend a lot of time arguing about it, but there was a discussion like, does this make sense? Does it work? Does it not? And it was probably one of the most brilliant ideas of the night because it forced people to watch throughout. And I just wish I'd thought of it myself. We forced people to watch throughout the night, even if there was a celebrity they didn't care about, because they had to look for certain clues to be able to participate. And then we had a social media engagement, with hashtags and everything else. So, if you're not in the world of using hashtags or social media, it was still a lot of fun to watch because you could print this card out and everyone loves bingo, right? So, so it's finding those kinds of things that will engage your audience in a way that you might not have thought of. Honestly, Google and look at other people's events. All of us on this call, and I know Michelle in particular would send us, because I think she's signed up for every event list there is, would send us like, here's another streaming event, here's another, and we were watching our peers and our competitors in some way, not in the NF space, but in the fundraising space, to understand how they were doing their events too, so that we could learn from that, because we all obviously want to succeed.
I love that.
Do that with, they were all free last year, so it was really easy to attend other people's events too and compare it. So.
Yep.
I think the overarching theme that we've learned from you is old school is the new school, because a lot of people are spending time trying to reinvent the wheel, but sometimes it is just picking up the phone and calling people, doing your research. So we are at the hour, so I really want to thank all of you for your time today. It was so fascinating to learn about your past year, and wish you continued success. And I hope that everyone enjoyed and has a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.